Son and DL left me in a garage for 5 hours during a family trip, so I moved into a penthouse. They told me to wait. Just a few minutes. Chloe smiled, the kind of smile she wore when she didn't want to explain something. Matthew didn't even look me in the eye. He opened the side door to the garage and gestured like he was doing me a favor. "It's just until we get the rooms sorted, Mom. It's a bit chaotic in there right now." I stepped inside without a word. It wasn't the first time they'd spoken to me like I was an inconvenience. "Hold on a moment before we move forward. Let us know where in the world you're watching from. And if you're loving these stories, don't forget to hit subscribe. Tomorrow's episode is going to be absolutely mind-blowing." The garage wasn't cold, at least not at first. It was mid-afternoon, in early spring, and sunlight slipped through the cracks in the side door. There was a folding chair, an old utility sink, and the unmistakable smell of oil and cardboard. A spider hung in the far corner of the ceiling, motionless. I stood still, unsure what to do with my bag. "Be right back," Chloe said. She closed the door with a soft click. It locked from the outside. At first, I thought nothing of it. Maybe she was just being cautious. Maybe there was a draft. I sat in the chair, balancing my purse on my lap, listening for the sound of voices inside the house. Nothing. 10 minutes passed, then 20, then an hour. There was no window, no clock, just the slow creep of silence thickening around me. I tried calling out once, just once. No one answered. My phone had been left inside my overnight bag, which Chloe insisted she'd carry. "Don't worry, I'll bring everything up for you," she'd said, smiling. Always smiling. It wasn't until the second hour that I knew. I hadn't been forgotten. I had been placed here, stored. The word popped into my head with a sickening clarity. I wasn't waiting for a room. I wasn't being protected from some household chaos. I was out of sight, put away, like a suitcase you keep in the attic until you need it again. 5 hours. I didn't cry. I don't cry easily. But I did sit perfectly, still, listening as the distant hum of laughter and music from inside the house rose and fell. I recognized Chloe's voice once, high-pitched and laughing, then Matthew's, then others, friends, maybe neighbors. I wasn't sure. I just knew. They weren't trying to include me. Eventually, the door opened. "Oh, you're still in here." Chloe's voice was light, like she was greeting a dog who'd waited patiently. "Sorry, it's been crazy inside. We meant to come get you sooner." I didn't say anything. I just stood up and followed her. Inside, the house was warm and filled with the smell of dinner. A bottle of wine had been opened. The television was on in the living room. Someone had set the table. My suitcase was tucked under the stairs, unopened. "We'll set you up in the office tonight," Chloe said. "It has a sofa bed. Not super comfortable, but it's fine for one night." Matthew didn't even glance at me. No one asked if I was okay. No one offered an apology. Dinner went on like normal. They talked about the local winery tour, about the hike they'd taken earlier without me, about how exhausted they were. I sat at the far end of the table next to my grandson, who barely looked up from his tablet. I ate my food in silence. It tasted like cardboard. That night, lying on the lumpy sofa bed, I stared at the ceiling and tried to understand what had changed. Not just that day, but in general. When had I become the afterthought, the burden? I used to babysit their son every weekend so they could have date nights. I helped them with their down payment when they bought this house. I cooked Thanksgiving dinners for 15 years. I kept their secret when Matthew was unemployed for almost a year, and Chloe asked me not to tell the rest of the family. Now, they couldn't even pretend to respect me. Something had shifted, quietly, without notice, like a chair slowly being pulled away from the table. The next morning, Chloe made coffee without offering me any. I found a mug and poured my own. Matthew was already in the car, loading the cooler and snacks for the day trip to the lake. "I think it's best if you stay back today, Mom," Chloe said gently. "It's going to be a lot of walking, uneven paths. You know how that can be." I nodded. They left by 9. By 9:15, I was sitting on their back porch with a cup of coffee and a notepad. I started writing things down. Just little things. Not even to make a point, just to see it in writing, locked in garage for 5 hours. Stay behind today, it's uneven. Forgot. My birthday last year, changed Wi-Fi password and didn't share. Said, "We're not comfortable with you driving Ben anymore." It added up quickly. The list filled 3 pages by lunchtime, and still, I didn't cry. That night, when they came home, no one asked how my day was. I told them I was heading home the next morning. Chloe smiled too brightly. "Already? I thought you were staying through the weekend. I'll get someone to pick me up." They didn't argue. They didn't ask why. They didn't care. In bed, I stared at the ceiling again and whispered aloud, "This is who I am to them now." And the next morning, before they woke, I was gone. I didn't leave a note. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't need to. But I took my dignity with me, and I already knew what I was going to do next. When I got back to my apartment, it was quiet, too. Quiet. I placed my small weekend bag on the couch and sat down slowly, like my body hadn't realized yet that the trip was over. It had only been 3 days. 3 days, 1 garage, and a sofa bed. But it felt like I'd aged 10 years. My knees ached. My hands were stiff from the cold concrete floor the first night. I hadn't told them about the draft in that garage. I hadn't told them about the chill in my bones. They wouldn't have listened anyway. I didn't unpack. Instead, I made a pot of tea and sat in my recliner, letting my mind replay the smallest moments from the weekend. Not just the garage. That was only the beginning. The truth was, it hadn't started there. That was just the moment I stopped pretending it was anything other than what it really was. Matthew had been different for a long time. I just hadn't wanted to admit it. After his father passed, I did everything I could to stay connected. I offered support, money, time. Chloe came into the picture not long after, and in the beginning, I was hopeful. She was polite, polished, a little cold maybe, but I told myself she was just reserved. That wasn't it. Chloe wasn't reserved. She was calculating. I saw it more clearly now, like when she started suggesting I visit a little less often because their son Ben was getting confused with the routine. Or when she asked me not to use their kitchen without checking first. She said it was about allergies, but I noticed she never asked her own mother to check first. Or when she changed the locks on their house without mentioning it, just handed me a new key and said, "We're trying to be more secure with deliveries." And then there was Matthew, my son, my only child. He used to call me every Sunday. Then it became once a month. Then only when he needed something. Childcare, money, a favor. And I always said yes. Always. That's what mothers do, right? I'd told myself that for years. But in the garage, sitting with the smell of oil and damp concrete around me, I finally saw it for what it was. It wasn't about keeping me safe. It wasn't about space. It was about control. It was about making sure I understood my place, about removing me from view without having to say it out loud. I wasn't welcome anymore. That's the part that broke me, not the hours in the cold, not the sofa bed, not the silence. It was the realization that they didn't even try to pretend they respected me. They saw me as something in the way. I finished my tea and opened the drawer where I kept old documents, bills, property records, insurance forms. I pulled out a yellow folder with my name on it. Inside were the papers I'd signed 3 years ago when I added Matthew to my house deed, just in case something happened and he needed to help manage things. It was Chloe's idea. "You're getting older. Ida," she had said kindly, "it's just a precaution, a way to make things easier." And I had signed. I trusted them, but now, that signature felt like a loaded gun I'd handed them. My name was still on everything, but so was Matthew's. I checked the bank account I had opened jointly with him 2 years ago to help manage his student loan payments. That account was still active, still linked to my retirement account, still accessible. I stared at the screen. They could take it all, or at the very least, make things very difficult. That night, I didn't sleep, not because of fear, because of clarity. I got up early the next morning and called Susan. She picked up on the second ring. "Ida? I need to talk," I said. "About something serious." "Are you okay?" "I will be," I answered. Susan was one of the few people who knew everything. She was my neighbor for 20 years before she moved to the other side of the city. She was also a retired estate attorney. I told her everything, from the garage to the property papers. She didn't interrupt. She just listened. When I finished, there was a pause. "I'm going to ask you something," she said. "And I want you to answer without thinking too much." "Okay. Do you want out?" I blinked. "Out? Out of all of it. Out of the entanglement. Out of the part where you're still obligated to people who treat you like you don't matter." I didn't hesitate. "Yes." "Then come see me tomorrow morning. Bring everything." I hung up and stared at the pile of folders on my dining table. The tea from the night before had gone cold. I poured it out and started packing. At Susan's office, we worked quietly. She explained the steps: revoke the power of attorney, close, the joint accounts, remove Matthew from the deed, create a living trust, move assets into it, create a private account, new beneficiaries, new protections, nothing flashy, nothing that would ring alarm bells. "Don't confront them," she said. "Not yet. Just secure your position first." I nodded. Every time I signed a paper, something in me clicked into place, like I was reassembling myself. I hadn't realized how much I had given up just to keep the peace. How much of myself I'd handed over little by little in the name of family. That was done now. When everything was filed and notarized, Susan looked at me and said, "What now?" I didn't answer immediately. Then I said, "I'm going to sell the house." "You're serious?" "They don't know I'm not. Coming back." "Where will you go?" "I'm not sure yet, but it won't be anywhere they expect." And I meant it. I started looking that night. Not at condos in my neighborhood, not at retirement homes or small apartments. I looked at places that scared me. Downtown penthouses, glass windows and rooftop patios, high-rise buildings with doormen, and concierge desks. Places I'd always thought were for someone else, for women with different lives. Bigger lives. Then I saw it, a listing for a 2-bedroom unit in a building I used to walk past when I worked downtown. I'd always admired it from the outside. It was on the 14th floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows, city view, balcony, hardwood floors, quiet, secure, expensive. I scheduled a visit. The next morning, I stood in the center of the empty living room, looking out over the city. Cars moved like little ants below. People walked fast down sidewalks. I imagined myself sipping tea in the corner chair by the window, not answering any calls I didn't want to. The agent smiled politely. "It's available immediately," she said. "We've had a lot of interest." I turned to her. "I'll take it." The process moved faster than I expected. Within 2 weeks, I had signed the papers, transferred the funds, and stood holding the keys to a life no one had designed. For me, but me. The penthouse was still unfurnished when I moved in. Boxes of basic items sat unopened in the corner of the pristine kitchen. The walls were white. The floors gleamed. Every light switch worked. Nothing smelled like mold or garage oil. The first morning, I opened every blind and stood barefoot in the living room, sipping coffee while looking out at the city. Nobody knew where I was, and for once, that didn't scare me. It calmed me. I had lived too long being easy to find. Now, I was mine again. I kept the lights low at night. I didn't post anything online. I didn't call anyone besides Susan. I wasn't hiding from the world. I was simply choosing who got access to me. That choice had been taken from me for too long. Still, there were things I needed to tie up. I hadn't spoken to Matthew or Chloe since I left their house that morning. No one called. No one messaged. No one asked if I got home safely. That silence told me everything I needed to know. But there were practical matters. My old house was still full of furniture, sentimental items, and I wasn't ready to let Matthew know I was planning to sell it. Not yet. So I drove there on a Thursday, parked across the street, and waited in my car until I saw their SUV leave. Chloe was driving. Matthew was in the passenger seat. Ben was in the back, watching something on a tablet. They didn't see me. I gave it 10 more minutes. Then I walked around the side of the house and used the spare key I'd hidden under the planter myself years ago, back when I believed I would always be welcome here. Inside, everything was exactly how I remembered. Too clean. Too quiet. The house never felt like mine. Even when it legally was. Chloe had redecorated every surface, removed every trace of warmth. There were no photos of me. No souvenirs from family trips before she arrived. The kitchen was immaculate, like no one ever cooked. My old tea set, the one Matthew had given me for my 60th birthday, was gone from the cabinet. I moved quietly through the hall and up the stairs to the guest room where I had spent holidays. That room, at least, still had some of my things. Few books, a framed photo of me and Matthew when he was little, and a dusty sewing kit I hadn't touched in years. I packed the books and photo into a bag, but stopped when I heard something. Voices. I froze. I wasn't alone. I crept to the top of the stairs and listened. The voices were coming from the kitchen. They had come back. Maybe they'd forgotten something. I stayed still, gripping the stair rail, my heart thudding. I leaned closer. "I'm just saying," Chloe said, her voice louder now. "If she really wanted to be part of this family, she'd stop acting like she's entitled to everything." "She's not entitled," Matthew replied. "She's just stubborn. She thinks we owe her something because of the help she gave years ago." Chloe scoffed. "She paid for part of the house, so what? We've paid her back tenfold with everything we've done. All the holidays, the visits, letting her stay here." "Yeah, well, she didn't ask to be locked in the garage." My blood went cold. Chloe didn't miss a beat. "She wasn't locked. It was just easier. You know how she gets. Always hovering. Always asking things. We just needed some space." Matthew didn't reply. She continued. "Honestly, I don't think she's coming back. And if she's not going to use the house, we need to start planning what to do with it. She's not getting any younger. Let's give it a little more time." "Why?" Chloe snapped. "So she can keep dragging her feet? She doesn't live here anymore, Matthew. The house is wasted just sitting there." There was a pause. Then Chloe spoke again, softer. "You already got her to put you on the deed. You said she wouldn't fight it." Matthew sighed. "I didn't think she would. She didn't back then." "Well, if she tries now, it'll be too late. Everything's been filed. As far as the system's concerned, half of that house is ours." My hands were trembling. I took one step back, then another, slowly moving down the hallway. The voices grew fainter the further I crept. I slipped into the guest bathroom, closed the door, and sat on the closed toilet seat, gripping my bag to my chest. They hadn't even noticed I was in the house. They were already planning how to take what was mine. I sat there for what felt like 20 minutes, waiting until I heard the front door open and close again. When I was sure they were gone, I moved fast. I grabbed everything I could carry: old documents, photo albums, a jewelry box, even the letters Matthew had written to me. From college, by the time I left the house, my car was half full. I didn't look back. I met Susan that evening at her office. She listened as I recounted the conversation word for word. "They're planning to sell it," I said, flat. "They think I'm gone, that I won't notice." She nodded slowly. "They're getting bold. They don't know I've already moved everything." Susan reached for a pen and scribbled something onto her legal pad. "Then it's time to move forward with the sale. Officially." "Without telling them?" She looked up. "Ida, listen to me. This isn't about revenge. It's about protection. You offered them kindness. They used it against you. Now you're reclaiming what's yours. You're not hiding anything. You're taking back control." I said nothing. I didn't have to. She was right. 3 days later, I signed the listing agreement. The realtor was a woman named Natalie. Early 40s, sharp, efficient, kind, but not overly friendly. I liked her immediately. "This is a good house," she said, walking through the rooms, clipboard in hand. "Well kept, it'll sell quickly." Just list it quietly, I said. No open house, no signs in the yard. She nodded. Discreet sale. Understood. As she walked through the backyard, I sat on the edge of the porch and looked out at the garden. I had planted roses here the year Matthew was born. They were gone now. Chloe replaced them with a gravel path and fake grass. A few hours later, the listing went live under a private network. Cash buyers only. No family. Contact. Offers through the agent only. And then I blocked Matthew's number. And Chloe's. They would find out eventually. But by the time they did, it wouldn't matter. The house would be gone. Just like I was. 3 weeks passed before anything changed. During that time, I lived in the new penthouse quietly. No visitors, no messages. I settled into routines that made sense to me and no one else. I bought my own groceries. I took long walks early in the morning, before the streets filled up. I went to a small bookstore nearby and signed up for a local lecture on city history. No one called to ask how I was doing, and I didn't call anyone. Either, I didn't owe explanations, I owed myself peace. The house didn't sell right away, but the offers started coming in. Natalie handled all communication. She kept everything quiet. No public listing. No sign out front. She told potential buyers it was a private estate matter, and that the seller was not interested in family drama. I didn't have to explain that. Part to her. She read it in my face. On the 4th week, she called. "We have a strong offer," she said. "Cash, no contingencies. Slightly under asking, but they're willing to close in 2 weeks. Take it," I said immediately. She paused. "You don't want to review the paperwork first? I trust you." "Okay," she said. "Then I'll prepare the documents." That was it. The house would be gone. The place where I raised Matthew. The place where I made Thanksgiving dinners by myself. The place where I bought Ben his first bicycle, and where I stored Christmas ornaments no one wanted to use anymore. Gone, and I felt nothing. No sadness, no hesitation. The moment I'd heard Chloe speak about that garage, all of it had vanished. There was no home in that house, only memory. And I had taken what mattered with me. I signed the sale papers 2 days later. It took 15 minutes, no fanfare, no emotion, just initials and dates and a firm signature on the final page. I walked out of the building, got in a cab, and went back to my apartment. By the time I stepped through the front door, I felt lighter. Susan called later that afternoon. "They'll find out today," she said. "The title transfer will be recorded by 5 o'clock. Let them find out," I replied. "You ready for that conversation?" I took a sip of water and thought for a second. "No," I said, "but I'm not avoiding it either." The first message came from Matthew at 5:42 p.m. "Mom, did you sell the house?" I didn't reply. At 6:01 p.m. he called. I let it ring. At 6:06 he sent another text. "Why didn't you tell us? We could have helped. What's going on?" I didn't reply. At 6:15, Chloe called from her phone. I blocked the number. At 6:23, Matthew texted again. "We need to talk. This isn't okay." That's when I replied. "You left me in a garage for 5 hours. That wasn't okay either." There was no response for 15 minutes. Then, that was a misunderstanding. "You're being dramatic." I blocked his number. I didn't need to hear anything else. The next morning, a knock at the door broke the silence. I stood completely still. Another knock. Then silence again. I waited 3 more minutes, then peeked through the peephole. Chloe, standing in her pressed white blouse, arms crossed, eyes scanning the hallway. I didn't open the door. She knocked again, this time with more force. "Ida, I know you're in there." Silence. She stepped back and looked straight at the peephole. "Look, I don't know what's going on, but this is petty. Selling the house behind our backs? Not returning calls? What are you trying to prove?" I said nothing. She waited a few seconds, then added, "You're acting unstable, and you're putting Matthew in a terrible position." I stepped back from the door and walked to the kitchen. By the time I returned 5 minutes later, she was gone. Later that day, I received an email. It was from Matthew. Subject: You didn't have to do this. Message: I don't understand what you're trying to accomplish. You've cut us off completely. Chloe says you're being manipulated. Is that what Susan is doing? This isn't how families treat each other. You should have come to us first. Selling the house like that, it's a betrayal. We just wanted to help you. I don't know if we can come back from this. I closed the laptop and went to sit on the balcony. The word betrayal rang in my head, not because it hurt, but because it was laughable. They betrayed me the moment they decided I was furniture. When they left me alone in a garage without even bothering to lie convincingly. When they plotted to take my house, to reduce my presence in their lives to something that could be shifted out of the way. That wasn't family, that was convenience, and I wasn't going to serve that role anymore. A week after the house sale closed, I received the final deposit in my private account. Natalie called to confirm. It's done, she said. Everything cleared. Thank you. Would you like me to send the check by courier? No, I said. Let it sit there. She understood. People like me, women like me, we're not supposed to win quietly. We're expected to forget, to forgive, to hand over the benefit of the doubt, even when we're shown, clearly, that we're not being seen at all. This time, I didn't forgive. I moved on. That weekend, I bought new furniture. Nothing expensive, but everything chosen by me. I bought a dining table that seats 4, even though I wasn't expecting company. I bought a new mattress, a new bookshelf, a new set of dishes that didn't match anyone else's preferences but mine. Then I visited a shelter 2 blocks away and signed up to volunteer once a week in the food pantry. No one there knew my name. No one asked about my family. They just needed hands. And I was more than capable. It had been 2 months since I finalized the sale of the house. 2 months without a single phone call that wasn't about guilt, blame, or money. 2 months of living in a space where no one raised their voice. No one told me I was being difficult. No one asked me to shrink myself to make room for someone else's comfort. The first month, I kept expecting some kind of escalation. Some dramatic appearance at my building or a legal notice trying to reverse the sale. I waited for threats, for manipulation, for Matthew's pleading voice or Chloe's thin, forced politeness. But after that last email, nothing came. Their silence was louder than any confrontation. That told me everything. They hadn't loved me. They had used me. And when I stopped being useful, they moved on. That was the truth I had never wanted to admit, but had always known. My days had taken on a steady rhythm now. I volunteered at the pantry twice a week. The staff didn't know my past, and I didn't offer it. They called me Miss Ida, handed me boxes to sort or inventory sheets to check. I brought my own gloves. Sometimes I stayed late to help clean. They appreciated it, quietly, honestly. One afternoon, after a long shift, I stopped by the grocery store on my way home. I was standing in the produce section, deciding between apples and pears, when I heard someone say my name. Ida? I turned. It was Helen, Matthew's godmother. She hadn't aged much. Still tall, still composed, still with that sharp look in her eyes that caught everything even when no one thought she was watching. Helen, I said, neutral. It's been a while. You disappeared, she said, not unkindly. I didn't disappear, I replied. I left. She nodded slowly. Word around is you sold the house. I did. Her tone didn't shift. Matthew didn't see it coming. I imagine he didn't. She looked at me for a long moment. I knew. Something was wrong the day I came by and Chloe wouldn't let you speak. I asked you if you were okay, and you looked down. That wasn't you. I didn't respond. She continued. She told me you were tired, that you were forgetting things, that you needed rest. I raised an eyebrow. She looked ashamed. I didn't push back. I should have. It's done now. She said you were going into assisted living. I nearly laughed. No, I'm in a penthouse. Helen blinked. A penthouse? I nodded. 14 floors up, big windows, quiet, paid for in cash. A smile flickered at the corners of her mouth. Well, that's not what they expected. No, I said. It wasn't. She leaned on her cart. You don't owe them anything, you know. I know. But if they come looking, they won't. She tilted her head. They've already made peace with the version of me that's useful to them, I said. The real version doesn't matter. Helen looked at me like she was seeing something she hadn't before. You're not the same woman I used to know. I hope not. She didn't ask for details. She didn't offer condolences or try to mend something that had been dead long before the garage. She just squeezed my arm and said, "If you ever want to talk, I'm around." I appreciate it. We parted ways in the frozen food aisle. I went home and opened a bottle of wine. I drank one glass and poured the rest out. I wasn't celebrating anything. I was just still. Later that week, I got a message. It wasn't from Matthew or Chloe. It was from Ben. It showed up in my inbox with the subject line, "Hi, Grandma." Just those 2 words already made something shift in my chest. I opened, "It's hi, Grandma. Dad and Mom said you moved away. They said you were sick and needed space. But I don't think that's true. I heard them talking when they thought I wasn't around. I know they made you stay in the garage that night. I asked them why, and they said it was complicated. I don't think that's a good reason. I miss you. I miss your pancakes and your stories. I miss when we used to go to the park. I hope you're okay. Love." Ben. I sat in my chair, holding the email open on the screen, reading it 3 times in full. He was only 11, still too young to know how people twist the truth to cover their tracks, but old enough to understand when something feels wrong. I didn't reply right away. I wasn't sure what to say. This wasn't Matthew reaching out to make amends. This wasn't Chloe trying to justify herself again. This was a child, trying to make sense of adult cruelty. So I waited a day, then wrote back, "Hi, Ben. Thank you for writing to me. I am okay. I live in a new place that I really like, and I have a nice chair by a big window where I sit and read. There's a bakery down the street that makes chocolate croissants I think you'd love. You didn't do anything wrong. What happened wasn't about you. I think about you often. I miss our pancake mornings too. You are always welcome to write me here. Love, Grandma." I didn't know if Chloe would read the message. I didn't know if it would be used against me, but I didn't care. That wasn't the point. Ben remembered, and he reached out. That was more than his parents ever did. A few days later, Susan called. "There's a rumor going around," she said. "Oh?" "Matthew's been calling around. He's trying to figure out what to do next. Apparently, Chloe's mother is moving in with them." I raised my eyebrows. "That's fast." "Well, you know Chloe," Susan said. "She doesn't like gaps, always needs someone filling the role. She picked someone more compliant this time." "Probably." I sat with that for a minute. "They're not doing well, are they?" I asked. Susan paused. "Depends how you define well. From the outside, they're functioning. Inside? Who knows? But it's not your concern anymore." I nodded. She added, "Selling the house didn't destroy them, but it exposed everything they were trying to hide. They thought I was bluffing. They thought you were weak." I didn't say anything. She didn't have to. I never saw Matthew in person again. I didn't go looking for closure. I didn't offer one last conversation. Some people say goodbye without realizing it. Some relationships end in garages. That was enough for me. It was a Saturday morning, nearly 5 months after I walked out of Matthew and Chloe's house and never looked back. The light through the glass walls of my living room was soft. The city below was quiet, still waking up. I sat with a cup of tea at the edge of the balcony, my slippers tucked under me, a blanket over my knees. The email from Ben was still marked as unread in my inbox, not because I didn't read it, but because I wasn't ready to close it. A second message had come the night before. "Hi again, Grandma. We have to do a family tree project at school. We're supposed to write about one memory with someone from each branch. I picked the time you took me to the zoo and we got soaked in the rain, but stayed anyway. That was the best day. I hope that's okay. Love, Ben." I didn't cry. I just stared at the screen for a long time and thought about how many days I had spent pouring everything I had into Matthew, believing that was the job of a mother. I remembered how often I'd let things slide, how quickly I had apologized, even when I hadn't done anything wrong, how I always said yes, even when I should have said no. I thought I was doing what was right. I thought being available was the same as being loved. I was wrong. Availability isn't the same as being valued, it's just being convenient, and convenience is disposable. When I first bought the penthouse, I thought it might feel like a temporary escape, something nice to look at, something unfamiliar enough to keep me distracted, but it turned into something else entirely. It became mine. Every detail in that space, from the clean counters to the silence in the evenings, was mine. No one told me to lower my voice. No one told me I was overreacting. No one asked me to wait quietly in another room. There were no glances exchanged over dinner, no whispered conversations I wasn't meant to hear. Just me. And that was enough. I furnished the second bedroom with a twin bed, a simple desk, and a small bookcase. I didn't explain to anyone why. I did it. But in the back of my mind, I imagined a time. Maybe not now, maybe not soon, when Ben might visit. He wouldn't find a garage. He'd find a room. One day, near the end of September, I got a phone call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to pick up. Ida? The voice was unfamiliar for a second. Then I realized it was Chloe. I said nothing. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, she continued, but I'm calling because we're moving. Again, I said nothing. Matthew got an offer in Denver. It's a good opportunity. We're leaving next month. Still silence. From my end. I thought you should know, in case Ben wants to keep in touch. I waited a moment, then said, he already does. She hesitated. I see. There was a pause. Then she added, I know you think I was cruel. And I probably was. But I didn't know how to handle you. I blinked. Handle me? You were everywhere, she said, sounding frustrated, like I was the difficult one. You were involved in everything. I needed space. You got it. I didn't mean, yes, you did. The line went quiet. I waited, then asked, is there a reason you're calling, Chloe? I guess. I just thought maybe this could be a reset, a fresh start. For you and Matthew? For all of us. I let out a long breath. No, I said. She didn't speak. No fresh start. I added. You left me in a garage, Chloe. That's not something I need to work through. That's something I walked away from, and I'm not coming back. Her voice was lower now. Even for Ben? I'm always here for Ben, but not through you. She tried to respond, but I ended the call and blocked the number. I kept my word. Ben continued to write. Sometimes short messages, sometimes pictures he drew at school, sometimes questions about how to cook something or whether elephants can live in cold places. I replied to every message, always short, always warm, never with bitterness. That wasn't his to carry. He never asked me why I left, but I think he understood in the way children do, quietly between lines, and in one of his drawings, one I printed and put on my fridge, he drew two people under an umbrella at a zoo. One was taller, the other had a big smile. Both were drenched. 6 months after the house sold, I got a letter from my old neighbor, Elaine. Handwritten. She told me the new owners gutted the kitchen and tore up the fake lawn Chloe had installed. They planted vegetables and rose bushes. I smiled. That felt right. Things weren't being restored. They were being reset for someone else. For something new. Elaine wrote, It's quiet here now. No more arguments through thin walls, just people living. I folded the letter and put it in a drawer. There wasn't anything more to say. On my 72nd birthday, I bought myself a small cake and ate it at my kitchen table, alone. There were no decorations, no visitors, no overcooked family dinner where someone made a passive-aggressive comment and someone else stormed off. Just silence, and I had never felt more full. At 7:30 p.m., I received one message. Happy birthday, Grandma. I wish I could be there. I told my teacher about you. She said she'd like to meet you one day. Love you always. Ben. I didn't reply right away. I stood and walked to the window. I looked out at the lights of the city, not thinking about revenge, not thinking about regret, just standing in a place no one gave me, that I built myself. And finally, I sat back down and wrote, I love you too. You're the part of the family I'll never walk away from. I hit send. Then I closed my laptop, turned off the lights, and sat with the quiet. Not because I had no one, but because I had finally chosen who. I let in, and this time, no one would lock me in any room ever again.